I think the challenges ahead are to see international terrorism in the right perspective. It is a problem, but it is not an overwhelming strategic challenge unless we let it be so. I think there were two big milestones after 2001, after the 9/11 attacks. Firstly, because the Americans interpreted it as a war on terror, and they began to fight it as if it was a war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and then again in Afghanistan. And the rest of us have had to live with the consequences of all of that, really. And the second thing was the attacks in London in 2005, in March 2005, because those attacks were suicide attacks which showed that we in Britain had a homegrown terrorist problem. And that's what we've lived with since. That was actually quite a shock, not that there was an attack in London, but that it would have been perpetrated by British citizens committing suicide in order to attack London tubes and buses. Those two realities, I think, of the post-9/11 world have created a significantly different strategic environment that we have been struggling to cope with in the 10 years since. I think the challenges ahead are to see international terrorism in the right perspective. It is a problem, but it is not an overwhelming strategic challenge unless we let it be so. And so our first challenge is to, in a sense, put international terrorism back in its box. It is no worse than international crime, which is to say it's quite serious, but it's not a strategic challenge. And the second thing is to understand the real strategic challenges that arise from the shift in world power. The world is changing more in the next 30 or 40 years than it's changed in the last 200. So the newly emerging powers of Brazil and India and China, Singapore, Turkey, they will have a pretty big effect on the shape of world politics. And we've only begun to think about what that will actually do to our defence and security policy, and indeed how it might affect our prosperity.